someone want to ask us how we met, or should we just start?
No, I think that was a mistake.
No, you're good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Obviously Sam is my brother. Growing up, our parents loved music, and we loved it too. And
symbiotic relationship there.
Sam started learning how to play drums.
Say
Sam would play a drum beat like
like that. Yeah.
and I would dance to it. Then, when I was about 11 or 12, Dan and I were cast in the same musical theater production at Bedford Middle School of Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories.
And there's no harm in asking
why everything should be just so. Okay, so that was one of the songs, but so Dan, in the end, Dan was cast as the Rhino, and I was cast as the Stove.
She was in the kitchen appliance.
Slow down.
Stove number 3.
Dan was a rhino and you were a stove?
Yeah, Dan was the Rhino.
We know the thing about rhinos and stoves.
It's a bit like Led Zeppelin and the Monkees, you understand?
Okay, well, so Dan sang this song that was like, aggressive and manic, I'm a four-legged Titanic, and I'm glad I've got a fair old lot of carbuncle, sweaty and hot.
Someone's listened to the original Cat soundtrack recently.
And I...
Very good, by the way.
Thank you. And I fell in love with Dan. I felt like hard in love with Dan. Because he was the best. He was the best at what he did. We dated briefly.
That was gay.
But at that point, we were still in love.
We're still a hot item.
Oh my god.
And so for our anniversary, I think I bought you tickets to go see Tokyo Police Club, Born Ruffians, and Harlem Shakes at Webster Hall. My mom drove us in. She still drove us into the city, and she dropped us off. So we were waiting outside. We were like in the ticket line. My mom was like driving around the block, and Dan was like, "Oh, my friend from camp is
My
here."
camp friends here, actually, my really cool camp friends here.
I met Spencer at summer camp, Long Lake Camp for the Arts, and we covered songs like Hitchin' a Ride by Green Day.
That's right.
That was the first one, I think. We moved on to Red Hot Chili Peppers, Incubus, Radiohead. You know, all the kind of standards.
Yes, so I had heard about Spencer as being, and in my mind, I feel like what I remember about Spencer is people were like, he's like a party god. Like, he's like...
Yeah, when I was 15
Party
years
god?
old, they were like, oh my god, he drinks so much Sprite. You should see this kid.
Slams cans.
I feel like
Yeah,
every
fucking
time I
Sprite
met
filled
someone, they were
pretzels.
like, you won't believe what Spencer Fox did last weekend.
He's a party god.
And I was like, okay, cool. I want to meet that guy.
Meet that party god.
But I was kind of nervous to meet him. Spencer was drinking out of this big Snapple bottle.
This big.
No,
It's huge.
I guess it's just a normal Snapple bottle filled with
He was
Vodka
like,
or
vodka
this?
or whiskey.
He was like, this is not Snapple.
Nico was like, well, what is it if it's not Snapple?
No, that's not true. What really happened was that you started talking to me and your breath smelled like alcohol.
Cavities.
Your breath smelled like alcohol. You were like, hey, it's so nice to meet you.
I said, it's so nice.
From that night on, we just became obsessed with each other in like a totally platonic way, which seems really strange to me given the fact that we were hormonal and like 15 when we met. But eventually one day, Spencer was like, I bet you've been writing songs and you haven't been showing anybody. I didn't realize that like my iTunes library was also available for everyone else,
Right.
and my iTunes library included my like voice memos section.
Now
And
I
so
understand.
everyone in my high school had access to my
Right.
voice memos, which is a current nightmare of mine. That someone will
That's so
suddenly
scary.
gain access to my voice memos,
Can you
which
imagine?
mostly are of me being like, completely. It's like I'm like walking down the street and you can hear like traffic going by and I'm like, it was embarrassing that that happened, but ultimately maybe that's where our band came from, and that's how Spencer found out about my talent.
Would probably be like, so Eva, you know, I heard that video of you playing an original song on YouTube. Would you ever want to write a few more of those songs, maybe with me helping you out? And you said,
Yeah, for sure. I'm really nervous, but I think it could be cool if we did that. Because I was really nervous. I mean, I was really, really freaked out to have to play any of the songs I'd been writing in front of someone else. And so that freaked me out. But Spencer was really sweet. So then basically, to fast forward, like, I decided to apply for a different program in school, and I applied early decision to go to NYU for the Clive Davis department, the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music, and I got in early decision and then got appendicitis the next day. And then after that, I kind of like started to join like Facebook groups for people who were also accepted into the program.
I know who also had appendicitis.
The appendicitis side group.
Yeah, I just decided to move in once this thing breaks up, man.
Wait, so you don't have your appendicitis? Okay, sick. We can hang out.
So anyways, once I joined all the Facebook groups for my graduating class, I like started to stalk everybody because it felt like the normal thing to do, and everyone already had like music that they had recorded, and they were all like performing at like real shows.
They were,
Real
for
venues.
sure.
And like I felt like I hadn't done any of those things, so I felt like we had to like get it together fast to make it seem like we were a real band in comparison to these other people who had been accepted to my school.
We convinced Sam to drum for us, which was a very new thing. We got to do like 2 practices with him, and I feel like, you know, at first it was very much like oh man, like I'm helping out my sister and this weird dude do this thing that I don't care about.
I'm older
but
than everyone. I feel weird.
This is weird, man. You were Southern at that
I
point.
was Southern.
But
Long tour.
I feel like as soon as we like got over the weird awkward hump in the studio, during that time was when we realized that like all of us really got along really well together, even though we were making very questionable music at the time. But
What did our music sound like at the time?
our music sounded like if you poured a frappuccino on top of a banjo. It was music you would hear in like a Starbucks, essentially.
Brown eyes I sing
Of you for weeks.
You're full of fiend. Ba 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 ba. And something that.
Yeah, that's
That's
it for
it.
that song.
No.
There were
Those are more.
banjos.
I played banjo on
There was
one or
a
2 songs.
Harmonium.
Mm-hmm.
No, then the owner of the studio kind of took an interest in us, and so we spent like a summer writing a lot
Yeah.
and practicing and just whatever, and we played our first show live in Connecticut.
And I remember it being super bizarre because at that point I was like pretty deep into my first year at NYU.
Yeah.
And all of my new friends from NYU took the train to Connecticut to see our first show in Fairfield, Connecticut at Neutral Ground.
That is so nice of them. I would absolutely.
I remember your
not
friends
do that.
coming.
Yeah,
On
absolutely.
the train, they came downstairs. Your green was Dude.
No, all of our friends, all of my friends too came down and were
Yeah.
like, good luck, like
Yeah.
it's gonna be great.
But it's funny. Then the first songs we ever really wrote like together, we showed it to the person who really liked us, and we kind of played them both back to back. And do you remember what he said?
He was like, I hate this music.
He's like, I hate this.
This is
We're like, what do you think? He's like,
This
I
is
hate
fucking
this.
terrible.
Yeah.
So
and
he
then
loved the music that like Spencer and I had written together, but hated the music that we all collaborated on.
So maybe, yeah.
But we were kind of like, fuck
Sorry,
that
guys.
guy, he doesn't know.
I ruined your career.
No, that's not what happened at all. This person had told us that the only way you could play a show in New York is if you had roadies to load you in and out of the show in New York.
And he was an older guy,
Yeah.
like in his late 40s, and had suggested when we were like, we don't know any other 19-year-olds that would want to be our roadies. He was like, I can just have my friends come do it.
I'm realizing that all my friends are playing shows in New York, and they're like, why don't you ever play shows in New York? Why is your band only playing shows in Connecticut? And I'm like, yeah, good question.
Right.
I don't know. So then I guess now we start playing shows in New York. Our first show in New York was at Arlene's Grocery, I think on May 15th, 2012.
What?
This one's
So in 2012, we're playing at Arlene's Grocery. We do that. We play a show at Pete's Candy Store. We're so excited, and I feel like I think of that as like a really amazing time for us as a band, because I just feel like every show we played, we felt so lucky that any venue would book us.
Mm-hmm.
And we were so psyched. It felt like every show was like kind of a dream come true. But I do remember one in particular. We played a show at Public Assembly. They recorded our set, and they gave it to us as a CD that same night. And I remember walking away from that show being like, we're the best band that's ever lived. I felt so good about that show, and I think we all felt that way, kind of. But that was also Memorial Day weekend, and so Sam and I went home to hang out with our parents, and Sam, I guess, listened to the CD that they had given us the night before, and he came up to me in Connecticut the next day and was like, listen to this CD while you're driving around. And I was like, oh, is it awesome? He was like, just listen to it. And it was so bad.
It was so bad. I still have the recording on my computer, and it is like under lock and key, but it is so appallingly bad.
Yeah.
It's like everything about it is the worst thing I've ever fucking heard in my life.
From there, we started kind of being really hard on ourselves and practicing more and being more efficient. And like, eventually Kevin, our bass player, left the band, and we needed to figure out someone new to replace him, and we luckily found Dan to replace him.
And I looked at Dan and I said, hey, kiddo, you ever played the bass guitar before? Try this thing on, see?
Oh, I think I got it.
And I looked at him and I looked at Spencer and I said, do you feel it? And he looked back at me and he said, I think I do.
I had never even picked up a pair of drumsticks, and Spencer looked at me and said, I feel like you can play the drums.
So Eva was just
And I
sitting in
said,
this room,
"What do you
sitting in
mean?"
the back of the cafeteria, smoking on this cigarette. And I said, hey, listen here, bird, you ever squawk before?
And she was like, I think I can sing.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I sometimes I tap with my chopsticks, but how'd you know?
I mean, I guess I've dabbled with Guitar Hero a few times.
My name is Eva and I like to sing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the end.
That's the story of the band. Good night. The rest is history. Drunk history.
Oh, nice.
Drunk Blisstory.
Drunk Blisstory. Aye.
Hey.